Let's talk Merrimack. Welcome to the second episode of our show where we talk Merrimack. I'm your referee host, Mary Beth Raven, and I've lived here in Merrimack with my husband for 34 years. The goal of the show is to talk about things that concern the residents of Merrimack and to encourage you to get involved in the town. Today's show focuses on concerns that Merrimack residents have, and future topics are going to depend on what you want to talk about and or current events. And today I'm here with two fellow residents, Ashley DePro and Wendy Thomas. Now, Ashley, you've introduced yourself before. Welcome back. You were on our inaugural issue. I'm just going to remind viewers that you're an Air Force veteran and you've got 3 kids and you work in high tech now. Is there anything else you'd like to remind us of?
I can share something new.
Sure.
I just took a typing test yesterday and I still got it. I can type 127 words per minute with 96% accuracy.
Bravo.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Terrific. Congratulations.
Wow. Impressive.
No, I'm just randomly.
You're not one of these.
Yeah, I know.
All right, and Wendy Thomas, perhaps you need no introduction in town, but go ahead and introduce yourself anyway.
Oh, well, that's a bit of a stretch, but thank you very much. I'm Wendy Thomas. I'm one of the 8 state reps, as we learned from the other episode. I'm in my 3rd term up at the State House. I sit on Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, which means I work a lot with the energy and the renewable energy issues that happen on the state level. My husband, Mark Nozell, and I have lived in Merrimack for 34 years, and we have raised all of our 6 kids here in Merrimack, which means that you can't have 6 kids without volunteering. We've been soccer coaches. We've worked on school boards for the swim team. We've done all kinds of things like that.
MYA fundraisers and all
everything,
that kind of stuff.
everything.
Yep. So now understand, Wendy, that there have been these listening sessions. So tell us a little bit about what they are. What's the purpose?
Sure. So in February, I was noticing online that congressional representatives were holding some listening sessions, and one party, the Republican Party, was getting a lot of flack for doing this from voters, and they quickly stopped holding these listening sessions. They pop up sporadically. And so I sent out an email to our Democratic caucus at the State House, and I said, what if we started holding listening sessions around the state, and not just in one district, but just around the state? Let's hear what people have to say. And these listening sessions, we're not campaigning. We are not grandstanding. We're not asking for donations. We are there to listen to what people have to say. And so recently we've held our 31st listening session around the state. And I go to all of the ones that I can. I've gone to about 29 of them. And we are getting an earful from people. They're concerned about prices. They're concerned about the future of New Hampshire. They're concerned about the way America is heading. They're concerned about prices of everything. We're also getting some criticism from these voters. So it's not just, we're there to collect information. We're there to get the bad as well as the good.
Okay. All right. So I understand that there are common themes. You've already mentioned some of the common themes, but the ones that you're hearing everywhere are property taxes, health care, housing, child care, and public education.
Absolutely. There are pockets, like in southern New Hampshire, immigration with regard to ICE was mentioned several times. Up north, we're hearing economic impact and bringing businesses into the northern country. So there are some differences with location, but you're right. Overall, it's property taxes is number 1. And if you imagine an umbrella, you've got the umbrella of property taxes, and underneath is health care, because the healthcare industry is not doing well right now. We're losing resources. You've got housing. People can't afford to live in New Hampshire because it's too expensive. And one of the comments we heard often was, my kids can't afford to live in New Hampshire. Child care.
I've got 2 adult children, neither of whom live in New Hampshire, unfortunately.
None of my kids have houses right now. They all have apartments, and even those are difficult.
My 9-year-old jokes around that he's going to live with me forever, and I tell him, like, you might have to, buddy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Child care is another issue. We want our kids, I have adult children now, to have grandchildren. But they can't afford to have kids because of childcare and the expenses. And so everything comes down to sort of the cost. And the cost is reflected in the property taxes because our property taxes keep going up because at the state level what's happening is they're cutting services. And every time they cut an essential service, we have to pick up the
And when you say we,
downshift.
who is the we? The taxpayers in the
The
town?
taxpayers, right. So right now, the majority at the State House is reflected by the Free Staters, and that's another comment I hear all the time. We've got to get the Free Staters under control. They're in charge right now at the state level, and so they don't believe in taxes. Their big thing is taxation is theft, and nobody likes to pay taxes. I mean, our property tax bill is going up really high. But the difference is that we don't mind paying taxes if we know it goes to a good cause.
Right.
And so at the State House, but they don't want any taxes. So they cut the I&D, the interest and dividends tax. Nobody asked for that cut. It only benefits the top 10% of the wealthiest people in New Hampshire. And it ended up putting a $180 million hole into our budget. So we have to pick up that flack with our property taxes. They've cut the rooms and meals tax, which sounds good. You know, as a tourist, you don't have to pay as much. However, the rooms and meals tax covers, it's revenue for the state of New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. We're now missing that revenue. So who picks it up? The property tax people have to pick it up. So we have to make up the difference. There's the business taxes, which need to be overhauled because we're not taxing the big businesses like Walmart. You know, they make tons of money every year, and they don't pay their employees enough. Many of their employees are on public assistance, so we're essentially subsidizing this big company.
Right. So like Walmart will pay somebody, they'll only get 20 hours a week to work, so they don't have to give them any benefits.
Exactly.
And then they go into debt because they have healthcare issues because they can't afford healthcare, and so it
spirals. Yeah, but we have to pick that up. The other thing is that in the tax laws in New Hampshire, if a large corporation has their headquarters outside of New Hampshire, mm-hmm. they don't pay taxes within New Hampshire. If we just close that gap, we could have mm-hmm. much more revenue in the state.
Now you're saying we have to pick that up, but are there cases where the town just says, sorry, we just have to eliminate it?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
these are essential services. I
Okay.
mean, the town, what we saw in the last election is the residents said they capped our budget, our town budget.
Mm-hmm.
They rolled it
Right.
back. And so we can do that. And so that forces the town now to cut back on things. Some of the feedback I had heard was that the fireworks weren't as impressive this year. Fireworks are expensive. If you mm-hmm. cut back the budget, we've got to cut back things,
right.
you know, for the
It's
town.
more important to have a firefighter than fireworks.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. Exactly.
How is the problem unique to New Hampshire versus surrounding states? Let's just keep it to New England, or if there's even any other states that you think would be similar in the country.
Well, so let's take a look at Massachusetts. And I know that the battle cry for Kelly Ayotte was don't mass up New Hampshire, but one of the things that they've done is they have a millionaire tax in New Hampshire. And people who are
in Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts, okay. I'm sorry, Massachusetts, not in New Hampshire. And so they're taxing the ultra wealthy. And everybody thinks that if you do that, the millionaires, the billionaires are all going to leave the state. Guess what? They're not, because they can afford this, you know, and it's helping their educational system. And speaking of the educational system, we've got to talk about the EFA problem in New Hampshire.
So first, explain to viewers, EFA stands for Education Freedom Account?
That's correct. And originally it was proposed as a program to help lower income families whose children may be having issues in public schools, whether it's bullying, whether it's specific education. And so it was proposed as a program that would help lower income. And everybody was like, yeah, of course we're going to help lower income. You get about $5,000 per child per year for the EFAs. And the idea was that would go towards a charter school, or it would go towards a religious school. There's not many schools, charter or religious, that cost $5,000. So these families would have to pony up a lot more, and so they're not really, the lower income people are not really leaving public school. The ones that are leaving public school are the wealthier families that can afford to pick up the slack. And what they've done recently in this budget is they've removed the cap for these educational freedom accounts, which are vouchers. And the Republicans get upset when we call it a voucher program, so we call it a voucher scam instead. Because what they're doing now is they've removed the cap, and the wealthiest families in New Hampshire that would never send their kids to public school, would always send their kids to private school, they now get $5,000 per child.
Okay, so when you say they removed the cap was on the amount of income.
Correct.
So before it was like you had to make less than $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever. Now you can make $100 million and you still get $5,000 per kid per year. And there was never any cap on that. I could have 20 children and you would pay me $5,000 per kid per year. Okay.
Right. So I have 6 children. I could theoretically get $30,000 to homeschool my kids. The other thing is that there's no accountability of this program. There's no. There was an audit that showed there was 25% fraud out of 50 accounts that they looked at, but there hasn't been anything else. And so one could theoretically say you're going to homeschool your kids, get the $5,000, and then a month later say, I've changed my mind, I'm going to put them into public school, and there's no way to track that money. And in that audit that they did, they found that there was a family in Texas that was getting money from New Hampshire for their family. And we're also finding anecdotally from states around the nation that are using these vouchers, that families are using them for vacations, for ski passes. Amazon is the biggest receiver of the money from these.
How so?
Can you find the report on the audit for this online anywhere?
For the New Hampshire audit? I can look. And I'll make it available on my Facebook representative page.
So explain to me exactly. So what does this education freedom account, removal of the cap, which means there's more money getting paid out, what does that mean for my taxes? How does this come back to my property taxes?
So every time a student is removed from our public school, that removes $5,000. And you would think that, if you take a student away, you should remove it. You should go down $5,000. However, we still have to run the building. We still have to heat the building. We still have to hire the teachers. If you remove 2 kids from each class, you can't really fire teachers or lay teachers off. And so there's the running of the building, the upkeep of the building that we still have to do. And the state is not paying us that money, so we have to make up the money in our property taxes, which is one of the reasons why the school budget is so large right now. The other reason is, and this was just established in the courts in New Hampshire is not constitutionally paying the amount they should for our students. They're
you
paid,
said just established, but just established again.
Again, exactly, again. And they said that we're not paying, New Hampshire is not paying, we're paying about $4,600 per student, and we should be paying about $7,200. So if the state started picking up their constitutional requirement, that would automatically bring our property taxes down.
So what you're saying is if we reinstituted the I&D tax, per se, then that could help make up the gap, and most people wouldn't be affected by it. Because I looked into, because I know there was a bill that was proposed earlier to reinstate it, and they had made the cutoffs even higher, so that it would be even more favorable for your average resident.
Yeah, and the I&D, just to quickly talk about what that is. I I have hired a contractor, a carpenter, to put a porch on my house. He's out there in this heat, sweating bullets, putting up, our porch, hammering in that hot sun. He is sweating for his wage. He's sweating. I&D is the tax on the money that you have saved, and good on you that you've saved it, but that earns interest. So you don't sweat to get that money. It is earned on interest. And so the guy who's sweating bullets has to pay tax on his income, and the person who is fortunate enough to have investments to pay that kind of money doesn't have to pay it now in New Hampshire.
And it's just taxes on the interest gained, right?
Right, and we're not.
It's not even on taxes on the money.
This is not on income. It's on.
Right. Well, yeah, on the taxes gained, exactly. And we're not. The taxes wouldn't take away all of your what you've gained. It would be a fair tax on what you've gained.
And there used to be one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about this for all day, but we are running out of time. And even though we didn't really mention it much on this episode, there are lots of ways to get involved in town. And there are many openings for volunteer positions for places to volunteer with the town. For example, Parks and Rec is looking for people to work with them, the Planning Board, the Town Center Committee, the Heritage Commission. They may not necessarily have a role in doing anything with property taxes or healthcare, but they do play a role in the overall environment of our community and what it's like to live here in Merrimack. So thank you very much for your time, Representative Wendy Thomas, Ashley DePro. We appreciate your time, and thank you all for joining us on our second episode of Let's Talk Merrimack.